لا 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 لا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, the blessings of Allah the Almighty, He has once again gathered us in a very blessed gathering, in a gathering that is blessed by angels on such an auspicious occasion, an occasion where we should be asking ourselves that this Ramadan just passed. The previous month was the month of Ramadan. The whole month passed. Was this our best Ramadan ever? Was this our best Ramadan ever? Were we truly spiritually uplifted? Were we truly spiritually uplifted? Did we truly connect with Allah the Almighty in this blessed month that just passed? Did we truly connect with Allah the Almighty? Did we utilize our time properly? And did we benefit properly? If so, then we deserve a gift. We deserve praise, we deserve credit, we deserve a certificate. Just take the example of a child who goes to school. He works really hard for a whole year. He works really hard for a whole year. After working really hard, come exams. When the exams arrive, he passes the exams with flying colors. Then that child, he deserves a certificate. He deserves praise, he deserves a gift, he deserves something. So what happens? A day is fixed for the child to be granted a gift, or to be granted a certificate, or to be praised in front of everyone in a gathering like this. So what do you say about the gift of Allah the Almighty? What do you say about the certificate of Allah the Almighty, the praise of Allah the Almighty? Well, it comes in a narration where Allah the Almighty, He asks the angels on Laylatul Jaizah, the night of prize giving, the eve of prize giving, when the Eid is declared. After Maghrib Salah, yesterday, after Maghrib Salah, because the Islamic day starts after Maghrib. So what happens? Allah asks the angels, and this is known as the night of prize giving, the eve of prize giving, Laylatul Jaizah. Allah the Almighty, He asks the angels, what do you think is the prize, or what do you think is the reward for that person, or for those slaves who have fulfilled their job? What is the reward for them? So what do the angels say? The angels reply and they say, O Allah, O our Lord, the prize or the reward for that person who has fulfilled his job is that he be given reward in full. He be rewarded completely. So Allah the Almighty, He mentions, O my angels, bear witness, that person who prayed for me, i.e. in the whole of Ramadan, that person who fasted for me in the whole of Ramadan, he has truly worked for me, he has truly acted upon my commands. So O angels, bear witness, I have forgiven him completely. So Allah the Almighty, He forgives us. So the certificate of forgiveness is granted to us. And on this night of prize giving, this is our prize. And this is our gift from Allah the Almighty, that He has forgiven us. So those brothers that utilized this Ramadan properly, and they truly connected with Allah the Almighty, and they were spiritually uplifted, and they made this Ramadan their best Ramadan ever, have been granted forgiveness from Allah the Almighty. But now the question is, what about those brothers that never spent their time properly? Those brothers that never made this Ramadan their best Ramadan ever? Those brothers and sisters that never connected with Allah the Almighty, what about them? So for those brothers and sisters, you don't need to worry, because Allah the Almighty, His mercy knows no limits. His mercy is limitless. It knows no bounds. Allah the Almighty, He mentions in the Quran, وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ, that do not be unhappy with Allah the Almighty, rather His mercy knows no bounds. Do not be despondent, or do not lose hope in the mercy of Allah the Almighty. Allah's mercy is limitless, it knows no bounds. That Lord and that Almighty that was there in the month of Ramadan is the very same Lord that we have outside Ramadan. We can still connect with Allah the Almighty now. We still have a chance. But remember, life and circumstances of life and also death is unpredicted. So don't leave it too late, because we never know. Today could be our last day, tomorrow could be our last day, the next minute could be our last minute. So we need to make the most of utilizing our time properly on this land. And that is why Allah the Almighty, He mentions in the Quran when He talks about fasting and Ramadan, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. That this whole month that Allah the Almighty wanted us to fast, it wasn't because Allah the Almighty He intended hardship upon us. It wasn't because Allah the Almighty He wanted to make us go through a tough time, a hard time, a time where He makes sure He sees, you are going through an oppressive time, or a time where you don't like going through this fasting, the excessive worship, waking up for Allah the Almighty, waking up early in the mornings, etc. This is not what Allah the Almighty He wanted from us. What Allah the Almighty He mentions here, He wants ease. Allah the Almighty He intends ease for us. Our whole religion is based on ease. It's not based on hardship. It's not for Allah the Almighty to make us go through an oppressive time. Allah the Almighty He wants ease for us. And then Allah the Almighty He further mentions that this ease, why does He want this ease for us? Is because this whole month of Ramadan, He wants us to prioritize Allah the Almighty in everything we do. So outside Ramadan, we also prioritize Allah the Almighty. In Ramadan, we know Allah is the greatest. We need to keep this embedded in our minds and hearts outside Ramadan as well. That we need to prioritize Allah the Almighty outside Ramadan as well. And then He further mentions, وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةِ, that this month of Ramadan, He wanted you to fast so you complete the whole month fasting, the 29 or 30 days of fasting. And then He further mentions, وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, so that you may praise Allah the Almighty. You may say that He is the great. That is why when we come to Eid, what do we say? We say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. We echo these chants of the greatness of Allah the Almighty, because Allah the Almighty, He wants us to praise Him. Upon that, He has given us guidance to this true religion, this peaceful and pristine religion. So Allah the Almighty wants us to praise Him, praise His greatness, that Allah the Almighty is the great. So when we come to Eid prayer, we say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. So we are praising Allah the Almighty. We are echoing the chants of His greatness. So Allah the Almighty is trying to tell us that I am not just great in the month of Ramadan. We don't just prioritize Allah the Almighty in the month of Ramadan. We prioritize Him outside Ramadan as well. So this very same message is embedded in us, or is directed to us on Eid as well, that prioritize Allah the Almighty, echo the chants of His greatness. And just like you were a living example of the greatness of Allah in the month of Ramadan, where due to Allah and because of Allah, you were waking up early in the mornings for tahajjud, for suhoor, you were going to sleep late because you were performing Tarawih prayer. Don't just limit this to the month of Ramadan. Likewise, you are reciting the Quran excessively in the month of Ramadan. Don't just limit the recitation of the Quran to the month of the Quran. Because when Allah the Almighty He mentions about reciting the Quran, He mentions فَقَرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ فَقَرَأُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنْ, in another place. So He mentions recite from the Quran, recite that which is easy from the Quran. So Allah the Almighty He does not restrict it with the month of Ramadan, that only recite in the month of Ramadan. That is why it comes in another narration that do not make your houses graveyards. Do not make your houses graveyards. In your houses as well, perform salah, perform nawafil, recite the Quran, so the blessings of Allah the Almighty descend. So the numerous bounties of Allah the Almighty descend in your households as well. So your families are full of blessings as well. Your whole house is full of blessings. So do not just limit worship to the month of Ramadan. Rather, make sure you understand that prioritizing the happiness of Allah and prioritizing Allah the Almighty, you also do it outside Ramadan as well. Now, we learnt many lessons in Ramadan. One of the main lessons was prioritize Allah the Almighty in all aspects of your life. So we were performing our 5-time daily prayers in Ramadan. Also perform your 5-time daily prayers outside Ramadan as well. Remember, just like you have to keep Allah happy in the month of Ramadan, you have to keep Him happy outside Ramadan as well. Carry on doing your fard actions. Carry on doing everything to prioritize the happiness of Allah. Not just in aspects of worship, but in aspects of dealing with others as well. Even in your workplaces, or when you're outside, when you're meeting non-Muslims, with your neighbors, with your family members, make sure you prioritize the happiness of Allah the Almighty. All you have to do is ask yourself a question. Is Allah the Almighty happy with my action, with what I'm about to do? If the answer is yes, then you know you're doing right. But if the answer is no, then you know you're doing wrong. Then you need to do what Allah the Almighty is happy with. So this is one lesson that we learned in Ramadan that we have to make sure we maintain outside Ramadan as well, is prioritizing Allah the Almighty in everything we do. Many of us will be working, many of us will maybe going to universities, schools, whatever, colleges, but unfortunately we overlook our salahs, for example, our 5-time daily prayers, which are fard, which we have to do. It's an obligation upon us, which is compulsory. But what we do, we overlook this and we'll give priority to our work, we'll give priority to school, university. I'm not saying drop out of university, drop out of high school, drop out of college, or drop out of your workplaces. No, you can still do that, because obviously earning and doing things that are part of necessity of life, you have to do. What I'm saying is prioritize the happiness of Allah the Almighty, prioritize Allah the Almighty. But whilst you do these things, don't overlook your obligations of life. Don't overlook the purpose of your creation, which is to make Allah the Almighty happy at all times. So one of the fundamental lessons we learned in Ramadan was prioritize Allah the Almighty. Another lesson we learned in Ramadan was time, the importance of time and time management. In Ramadan, we were prioritizing our time for Allah the Almighty. We understood the importance of time because there's a certain time that you have to make sure you break your fast. You cannot break it earlier than the time. And there was a certain time where you have to make sure you close your fast, and you cannot eat after that. Why? Because Allah the Almighty and our religion is trying to emphasize that time is of essence in the life of a believer. Time is of essence in the life of a Muslim. A Muslim should not be wasting his time. A Muslim, he should make sure that he's prioritizing his time in the way Allah the Almighty is happy with him. He should not be wasting his time. That is why Allah the Almighty, He mentions in the Quran, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Allah the Almighty, He takes an oath on time. He takes an oath on time. When Allah the Almighty, He takes an oath on something, then that shows the importance of that thing. So Allah the Almighty is taking an oath on time by time, indicating and directing this lesson to us that time is of essence, time is of importance, do not waste your time. And then Allah the Almighty further mentions, verily man is in loss. Verily man is in loss, except for that person who has believed. And alhamdulillah, we are all believers here. We are all believers. So we are not in loss because we are believers. But Allah the Almighty, He does not just mention that those people that are believers, they are not in loss. He does not just keep it there. Many of us, unfortunately, alhamdulillah, we are believers, but we think that being a believer is sufficient. Being a believer is enough. But that is not the case. Allah the Almighty further mentions, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, that verily man is in loss except for those that have believed. And then He mentions, and except for those that do good actions and those that do good deeds. So as a believer, you also have to do good deeds. You also have to act upon the commands of Allah the Almighty and the Prophet ﷺ. You also have to pray your 5-time daily prayers. You also have to fast in Ramadan. You also have to act upon the obligation of Hajj. It is compulsory upon you. You also have to discharge the obligation of zakat, if zakat is compulsory upon you as well. So as a believer, you also have to do good deeds and good actions as well. You cannot just be a believer and think that is sufficient, but you also have to do good actions. And obviously that will come if we understand the importance of time, that time is of essence in our life. Now alhamdulillah, today is Eid, a great day, a day of happiness, a day of joy, our celebration. But remember, our celebration is a celebration that should be spent in the obedience of Allah the Almighty, where we smile, we meet our family, friends, we meet everyone. There's unity, there's brotherhood, there's no quarreling, there's no arguing, etc. But at the same time, we do not spend our time, our celebration, in being disobedient to Allah the Almighty, in disobeying Allah the Almighty, because then we are wasting the whole month where Allah the Almighty, He granted us numerous rewards. He is forgiving us on the night of price giving that just passed. Allah the Almighty, He granted us the certificate of forgiveness, but we are washing it all away by disobeying Allah the Almighty. So we do not want to do this. So this is a day of happiness, a day of unity, a day of brotherhood. This is a great day if we have got some issues with our brethren, with our friends, our family members. where we have broken ties, we are not on good terms. This is a time and a day where we can forget all that and we can meet each other and create a bond with our family members, create a bond with those that we have broken ties with, and we need to make sure we crush our egos, we crush our desires, and don't let our egos overtake us, and where we make sure we show true happiness amongst us. Because remember, tomorrow we will die. So if you've got like a quarrel going on with another family member, it is of no use because it's not going to help you in the hereafter. So on this day of happiness, on this day of joy, we need to make sure we show unity and brotherhood amongst us, and we make sure we understand that this is the religion of peace, so we always stay peaceful. I pray Allah the Almighty give us all the ability to understand that we should be prioritizing Allah the Almighty outside Ramadan as well. I pray Allah the Almighty give us all the ability to understand the importance of time, that time is of essence in the life of a Muslim. I pray Allah the Almighty give us all the ability to understand that we should be obedient to Him at all times. And I pray Allah the Almighty give us all the ability to unite and to show brotherhood amongst us. And I pray Allah the Almighty give us all the ability to act upon everything that has been said. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
كن سعيدا كن فريدا عش بفخر في الحياة.